Part 3 Year of the Cobra.
There is, I believe, a destiny for us, a glorious culmination of all it means to be human and immortal. Destiny, however, does not come without exhaustive effort and clear-minded leadership. The year of the raptor was devastating to us all, but by the year of the ibex we had begun to heal. The year of the quokka saw us further aligning our ideals and priorities as sides. Now, on the first day of this year, I see only hope for the days ahead. Here, at this first continental conclave, I wish to publicly thank High Blades Pickford of Wismerica, Hammerstein of Fitzmerica, Tisuk of Mexiteca, and MacPhail of Northern Ridge for their faith in me. That they, and you, the sides under them, have chosen me to shepherd North America as your continental overblade is beyond validation. It is a clear mandate to push forward with our new order objective. Together, we will create a world that is not only perfect but also pristine. A world where the broad and powerful swath of each side brings us ever closer to that singular goal. I know that there are still those among you who, like the recalcitrant Lone Star region, are not sure that mine is the right path. The uneasy among you look for method in the madness, as they say. But I ask you, is it madness to want to lift the human species to new heights? Is it wrong to have a vision of a future as crystal clear and finely cut as the diamonds on our hands? Of course not. I wish to make it clear that your high blades will not be abdicating their positions. They will be, still, stewards of your respective regions, responsible for local administration. However, they will now be free from the burden of more cumbersome policy decisions. Those larger issues are left to me, and I promise that I will live for no other purpose but to lead you tirelessly into the future.
From the Ascension Address of His Excellency, Overblade Robert Goddard, January 1st, Year of the Cobra. Chapter 24 Rats in a Ruin. Fort Saint John and Fort Saint Nicholas were built on either side of the entrance to the port of Marseille, in what was now the Franco-Iberian region of Europe. What was odd about these forts, built by King Louis XIV, was not the fact that they had large cannons, but that those cannons were not aimed toward the sea to protect the fort from invaders. Instead, they were pointed inland, toward the bustling city of Marseille, to protect the king's interests from a public uprising. Robert Goddard, Overblade of North America, had taken a page from King Louis's book and mounted heavy artillery in the 68th floor garden around his crystal chalet, aiming down at the streets of Fulcrum City below. They were installed long before his ascension to Overblade, shortly after he announced that the toll had been cleaned. He had thought that cleaning their so-called profit would stand as a warning to Tony's the world over, and a reminder that if sides were not respected, they should be feared. Instead, Tonists went from a persistent nuisance to a growing danger.
This is nothing we didn't expect,
Goddard claimed.
Change will always face resistance, but we must forge forward in spite of it.
Never once did Goddard consider that the escalation in violence against the Scythoms of the world was brought on by his own order to clean the toll. Your greatest flaw, under Scythe Constantine dared to tell him, is that you fail to understand the concept of martyrdom. He would have banished Constantine on the spot if the man hadn't been needed to bring the stubborn Lone Star region in line with the rest of North America. That region had become a refugee for Tonists now.
It serves Texas right,
Goddard proclaimed.
Let it be overrun by them like rats in a run.
The Overblade's crystalline chalet had changed over the past few years. Not just the city-aimed weaponry, but the crystal itself was different. Goddard had the outer glass reinforced and AC treated, so that it could no longer be seen through. The result was that when you were in the chalet, it appeared, day or night, that Fulcrum City was shrouded in perpetual fog. Goddard was convinced that the Tonys had spy drones. He was convinced that other forces were bonding against him as well. He was convinced that unfriendly regions were aiding those forces. Whether or not any of these things were true didn't matter. He acted as if they were. which meant it was Goddard's truth. And what was true for Goddard became true for the world. Or at least every part of the world where he had smudged his indelible fingerprint.
Things will settle,
He told the nearly 2,000 sides who had gathered for the First Continental Conclave.
People will get used to the way things are, see that it is for the best, and they'll settle.
But until then, the windows would remain fogged, the troublesome would be gleaned, and the sailing guns would point resolutely at the city below. Goddard was still reeling from the botched Amazonian raid. Hybrid Pickford had failed to apprehend scythe anesthesia. It wasn't the first time that she had disappointed him, but there was not much he could do about her. At least not now. Goddard did foresee a time when he would appoint the high blades of other North American regions, rather than leaving it to the unpredictable voting process in conclaves. Pickford's saving grace was that she did manage to catch Rowan Demisk, who was at this very instant on his way to Fulcrum City. That would have to suffice until the girl was apprehended. Hopefully, Anastasia would be so consumed by running and hiding that she wouldn't be able to make much trouble. In retrospect, he should have maintained a perimeter of reverence in the waters above Endure. He had been worried that the salvage might reveal evidence of what really happened. He never dreamed it might lead to this. The morning brought other business, and Goddard had to put aside his frustration, which was much harder to do than it used to be. Hybrid Cyrus of Roself is on his way up, with a sizable entourage, Underside Franklin informed him. And are they of one mind? Rand quipped. Goddard chuckled slightly, but Franklin never gave Rand the slightest of courtesy laughs. Their minds are less important than the grades they're carrying, she said. Goddard met them in the conference room, after making them wait 5 minutes, because Goddard always wanted to make sure his guests, even his important ones, knew that his skill mattered more than theirs.
Nobu,
said Goddard, and went over to Highblade Cyrus like an old friend.
a pleasure to see you. How are things in Antarctica?
Things are well, he said. Is life but a dream? Offered Rand. On occasion, said Cyrus, missing the slight on the unique nature of his region. But only when we have to row our own boat, I suppose. No, Underside Franklin offered up a courteous laugh, but it created more tension than it dispersed. Goddard glanced at the crates, each held by a member of the Blade Guard. There were only 8 of them. Other regions came with at least 10 crates, but the lower number could simply mean they were more densely packed.
To what do I owe this visit, Your Excellency?
Goddard asked, as if everyone there didn't already know. On behalf of the Russell region, I would like to present you with a gift. It is our hope that it will help formalize our relationship with you. Then he nodded to the Blade Guards, who placed the crates on the conference table and opened them. As expected, the crates were full of scythe diamonds. This represents Russell's share of the diamond race from the ruins of Endura, Cyrus said.
Impressive,
said Goddard.
Are these all of them?
All of them, yeah. Goddard looked over the sparkling contents, then turned to Cyrus.
I accept your gift with humility and honor in the spirit of friendship with which they were given, and whenever you need gems for the bejeweling of shattered sides, they will be available to you.
Then he gestured to the door.
Please follow Underside Franklin. She will escort you to my dining room, where I've prepared a brunch for us,
Goddard said.
Traditional Antarctic fare, as well as regional specialties of America. A feast to consummate our friendship. I'll be along momentarily, and we'll discuss issues of concern to both our regions.
Franklin escorted them out just as Nietzsche entered.
Give me good news, Freddy,
Goddard said. Well, we've been tracking Anastasia south, he said. There's only so far south she can go before being confronted in Tierra del Fuego. Goddard sighed.
The Land of Fire will not cooperate. Let's up our efforts to catch her before she gets there.
We're doing all we can, Nietzsche said.
Do more,
Goddard told him. He turned to see Scythrend running her hand through the diamonds in one of the crates. Are we going to count them, or do you trust Cyrus?
It's not the number that matters, Zane, but the gesture. The trove we are creating is simply a means to an end, a symbol of something far more valuable than diamonds.
Even so, Goddard knew he would hurl them all into the sea in exchange for having safe anesthesia in his hands. Chapter 25. Sunlight in Shadow. Though helping Anastasia escape Amazonia was fraught with strife, the strife had receded to the horizon behind his pens, which was now, Jericho mused, no longer a salvage ship, but a rescue vessel. The seas were easy as Amazonia faded behind them, and the sun rose before them. By 9 o'clock, all signs of land were gone, and the bright morning sky was dotted with occasional puffs of murdering clouds. Yuri would have much preferred a low cloud cover today, or even better, a soup-thick fog. For if those North American sides figured out that Anastasia was traveling by sea, these pens could be targeted and sunk. Rest assured, they won't come after you, Pozuelo had told Yuri. I made sure they intercepted a secret communique I sent, and they took the bait. As far as the North American know, Anastasia is weaving a circuitous route south by train all the way to the Land of Fire, where the region's high blade is supposed to have offered her sanctuary. And to make the story stick, we're leaving glaring traces of her DNA for them to find along the way. It will be days before they realize it's a wild goose chase. It was clever enough. Northern sides saw Amazonians as too simple to concoct such a ploy, and the Land of Fire, Jerry knew, would be suitable and cooperative with the North Americans. The sides down there were obstreperous to an extreme. At full speed, they would reach safe harbor in just under 3 days. From the bridge, Yuri could see the turquoise figure of Scythe Anastasia at the starboard rail, looking out over the sea. She was not supposed to be alone. Pozuelo had made that clear, and perhaps his paranoia was justified, considering that he had been betrayed by one of his own. Yuri trusted the crew of the Spoons implicitly. They had grown fiercely loyal to their captain. Even so, it was always wise to take precautions. The only reason Anastasia would be alone would be if she ordered the officer assigned to her out of her presence. The command of a scythe overruled the orders of a captain. Sure enough, Yuri saw the officer one deck up, keeping a tight eye on her from a distance. It seemed that the only way to effectively guard the willful scythe was to do it personally. She's going to be a handful, Chief Wharton said. To be sure, said Yuri. But a handful of what? We don't know. Misery, suggested the chief. Perhaps not. Then Yuri left the bridge to join her at the rail. She wasn't looking down at the water. She wasn't looking at the horizon either. It was as if she was gazing at something that wasn't there. Are you contemplating a leap? Jerry asked, breaking what felt like a considerable layer of ice. Should I be worried? Anastasia glanced at Yuri, then returned her gaze to the sea. I got tired of pacing down below, she said. I thought being on deck might calm me down. Have you heard from Pozuelo? I have. What does he say about Rowan? Yuri took a moment before responding. He didn't say, and I didn't ask. Then he's been captured, Anastasia said, and pounded the rail in frustration. I'm sailing to freedom, and he's been captured. Yuri half expected her to order the ship to turn around and go back for him. If she did, they'd have to oblige, for she was a scythe. But she didn't. She was wise enough to know that it would only make matters worse. I cannot, for the life of me, understand your devotion to Scythe the Fair, Jerry dared to say. You know nothing about it. I know more than you think. I was there with Pozuelo when we opened the vault. I saw you in each other's arms. It was the kind of intimacy not even death could hide. Anastasia averted her gaze. We shed our clothes so the cold would kill us before we suffocated. Yuri smiled. I suspect that is only a half-truth. She turned and considered Yuri for a long moment, then changed the subject. Yuriko, that's an unusual name. I seem to recall a Mortal Age story involving a wall coming down. Are you a collapser of walls? You could say I find things in the ruins of walls that have already fallen, Jerry told her. Honestly, though, it's a family name that has no bearing on the story of Jericho. But if you find it off-putting, you can call me Yuri. Everyone does. Okay, and what are your pronouns, Yuri? Yuri found it refreshing that she asked so directly. There were still people who were too awkward to ask, as if Yuri was being accidentally ambiguous, and not intentionally so. He, she, they. Pronouns are tiresome and lazy things, Yuri said. I'd much rather call a person by name. But to answer your deeper question, I'm both male and female. It comes with being Madagascan. Anastasia nodded knowingly. You must find us binary people strange and confusing. I did when I was younger. I never met someone born to a single gender until I was well into my teens. But I've come to accept and even appreciate your quirky rigidity. So, you see yourself as both? But I imagine there must be times when you're more one than another. Not only direct, but insightful too, Yuri thought, liking this resurrected side more and more. She asked the right questions. You could say it's dictated by the heavens, Yuri told her. When skies are clear, I choose to be a woman. When they are not, I am a man. Yuri turned to take in the sunlight shimmering on the surface of the sea. It was marked by the shadows of the occasional cloud, but right now the ship did not fall beneath one of those shadows. At this moment in time, I am a woman. I see, she said, without the judgment that some might show. My father, who's a scholar of the mortal age, said that the sun is almost always seen as masculine in mythology, and of course there's the man in the moon. Choosing to be feminine in their light creates a balance. There's a natural yin and yang on it. And to you as well, Yuri said. After all, turquoise is symbolically the color of balance. Anastasia smiled. I didn't know that. I chose it because it's the color my brother wanted me to be. An inner shadow seemed to cross her face, a pang at the thought of her brother. Yuri decided it was too personal a hard take to delve into, and allowed her privacy on the matter. Does it bother you? She asked. To always be at the mercy of the weather? I would think that someone like you would want to be subservient to as few things as possible. Besides, it must be awfully inconvenient on partially cloudy days like this. As if on cue, the sun slipped behind a small cloud, then out again. Jero laughed. Yes, it can be inconvenient, but I've gotten used to it, embraced it even. That unpredictability has become part of who I am. I've often wondered what it would have been like to have been born in the Madagascan region, Anastasia said. Not that I'm really interested in being a man, but I wonder what it would have been like to explore both sides when I was too young to know the difference. That's the whole point of it, Jory told her, and the reason why so many people go to Madagascar as a place to raise their children. Anastasia considered it a few moments more. I suppose if I divided my time between land and sea as you do, I might choose to be one way on land and another at sea. That way, my gender wouldn't be at the mercy of the winds. Well, I would enjoy your company either way. Anastasia said coyly. Flirting with me in sunlight, it makes me wonder if you'd also do that in a storm. One of the benefits of being Madagascan is that we see people as people. When it comes to attraction, gender is never part of the equation. Then Yara looked up as the light dimmed slightly. You see, the sun has passed behind the cloud again, and nothing has changed. Then Anastasia stepped back from the railing, a gentle smirk still on her face. I think I've had enough of both sunlight and shadows for now. Good day, Captain. Then she turned to go below, her robe fluttering behind her like a loose sail in a gentle breeze.